Anyway, today I wanted to take up something that's in today's Murli, which you all just heard. And at the moment, something that's fascinating me is whenever Baba uses the expression, which is right at the end of this little section, these things are not known to people, to any people except you. So whenever he makes a sentence like that, I'll look at that and I'll say, okay, this is the new information. Because someone who comes to Gyan from a different background, from conventional Hindu bhakti, we don't really know what the public knows already and what is new information. And so, of course, one of the things I did is to study the Indian scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, and I needed all the information about all the stories and references that come in the Murli. And I would interrogate Dadi and Jayantiben and anybody else about all this. But I don't think people hear about these things now. So what he says in this section is that when the soul becomes detached from the body, so you're in meditation, you're practicing to be detached from the body, to be soul conscious and just the soul alone. So when the soul is detached from the body, then all your relationships with the social world are broken. So when you actually leave your body, you also leave your bodily objects and place and relatives. You're cut from them. When you're in meditation and you go into the seed stage, or you go into a state where you really just experience yourself as a soul and you feel that you are not connected with your body, in reality, your connection with the social world is finished. And the song of today's Murli, the song says that you must understand yourself to be a soul and practice to be bodiless in Baba's remembrance. And if you do that, then in the same way as when you actually leave the body, your bondage to the world is finished. You are in a state of freedom for those few minutes that you're in meditation. Then he goes on to say, your body is standing on the earth, and the soul comes out of the body. And then in that case, for that period of time, the human world ceases to exist, because your contact with the human world is only there as long as you are in your body, connected with your body, operating through your body. So he's teaching us to meditate in this way so that we really experience that your connection with the world exists only by virtue of your body. The second you are detached from your body, or you leave your body, or you are beyond your body, then your that material world, that social world, doesn't exist anymore. So that means in our practice, we are dipping in and out. Sometimes we are with the people and everything, and sometimes we are totally in a different space. We are remembering Shiv Baba in the soul world. And then for that period of time, the material world doesn't exist because we are on another dimension. We are disconnected with it. So our experience of the material world exists purely on the basis of sense perception. We can see it, we can hear it, we can touch it, we can feel it, we can smell it. And so we say it is there. Now, when we experience in meditation that we are disconnected from it, of course, intellectually we know it is there. But when your meditation is at that level, I don't know how many people are able to bring their meditation to that level, but that is what meditation really is. And then you experience that it is not there. And of course, your karma and your, the sort of gravitational pull and magnetic pull of the body is strong. So you can't stay in that state for very long, but you can stay long enough to know that when you go to that other mental space, this material world doesn't exist for you for that period of time, so that you know the difference. And so that also you know that the material world exists only as something that you perceive through your senses. And this is also spoken about a lot in the Bhagavad Gita. Now, I know that most BKs do not study the Bhagavad Gita, but I do. Because I always need to know the context, the background. Otherwise, I have an incomplete way of approaching Gyan. And so there are many shlokas in the Gita which talk about this. Now, the next thing Baba says is the soul becomes naked. And there's an expression in Christianity which corresponds with this. They say, you meet God naked and alone. So naked doesn't mean you take your clothes off, but your body is actually the costume of the soul. So when you become detached from the body, you're naked and you're alone because you're also detached from all the people that you know of through your body. And now what this also means is that the reality of the world is known to you through your sense perception. And your sense perception records data in your mind. You see, you see an object through your eyes, but you are the soul. And the place where the recorded information about the thing that you see is not where that thing is, it's in your mind. And so everything about the material world that you experience, you think, you believe, you experience, and your brain makes it known to you that all these things are physically on the outside of your body and that they're real and that they're solid reality. But then when you meditate and you become aware of being in a dimension which is not the material world, then you begin to understand that everything in the drama is in your mind. And so every time you go around the 5,000-year cycle, your perception of that 5,000-year cycle is what gets recorded in your mind through your eyes and your ears and your fingers and your tongue and your nose. And this is why it's an identical repetition for you. And each of us experiences that cycle via our sense perception. And it's recorded. As Baba says, it is recorded already and it's being recorded. So this is a very difficult thing for people to understand, but yet it is a very important aspect of Gyan, because we need to be able to grasp that whatever is happening is already in there, because every cycle repeats, but we don't know what is next, right? We don't see the future on the whole, people don't. But everything that comes from the future into the present corresponds with something that's already there, and at the same time, it's re-recorded. You see, and this is an extraordinary piece of information, which is hard to grasp. We hear about it, we say yes, 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 but then to really grasp it is very subtle. So the soul becomes naked and alone, and then when the soul comes into the body, so when a person dies, the soul leaves the body, it becomes naked and alone. Then what happens? It goes into another body. So when the soul comes into the other body, the role begins. So that means in between bodies, there's no part, there's no role, and the soul doesn't experience the passage of time. And this is why it is said that you leave one body and you get another one instantly. And then other people say, well, what about the ghosts and all these things? But at that time, in terms of what Baba's saying here in these sentences, the soul is not doing anything. And then there's a very interesting little bit further on about karma and karma bondage, which is very, very interesting. So when the soul comes into the body, the part begins. And then you leave one body, you take another one, you enter into the other body, and you do not go back to the world of light, which is called the Mahatattva. So there are the 5 elements of matter and the 6th element of light, Mahatattva. This refers to the soul world. So there are many beliefs in Hinduism that when you leave your body, you go to liberation, you go to the soul world, and you stay there if you have a very high spiritual evolution and development. But he says, no, it doesn't work like that. Nobody can go back to the soul world. So neither Christ nor Paramahansa Yogananda nor anybody has ever left the material world by leaving their body and goes back to the soul world. So this is new information. He says everybody must take a new body. However spiritually developed they are, they must take a new body. And they must also decline, because the cycle is all about decline. So that's one important piece of information that clashes with most people's beliefs. Baba says, no, the soul flies and enters into another body. You are here in the Akash Tattva. So the Akash Tattva refers to the ether. So the 5 elements are air, earth, water, fire, and then ether. So ether means space. It doesn't mean sky. Space or ether. And as long as the soul is in the element of ether, it's pulled into the material world, and then it performs the role. So when you're in the body and you're performing a role, then you experience something and you act, you do karma. The soul does not return to Moolavatan. So Baba's given a different word for the soul world here, Moolavatan. So this word Vatan means the dimension. So Sthula Vatan is the dimension of matter, and Sukshma Vatan is the subtle world, and Moola Vatan means literally the original space. So we, at the end of the cycle, we do return to Moola Vatan, but otherwise the soul cannot leave the earth until the end of the cycle. So you don't go back to the region of light, you don't go back to the original dimension. When the soul leaves the body, then neither does it have any karmic bondage with the previous body, nor does it yet have any karmic bondage with the subsequent body. So there is a space in between leaving the body and getting a new body. This space between leaving the body and getting a new body, people don't know about this. But Baba says it is like that. And at that time, you are karmatit. You have no karma with the previous body, no karma with the coming body. And you are separate from the body. And being separate from the body, you are also completely free, no karma. But it doesn't last very long. But it's also out of time, because the dimension of time is only when you're in the body. Then Baba says you take another body, and then the karmic bondage connected with your future body, the one you just arrived in, begins. So you take another birth according to your karmic bondages. So your karmic bondages are temporarily suspended in between bodies, but as soon as you come into the next body, the karmic bondage has you in its grip. So Baba says these are pieces of information that other than you, there is no human being who knows about it. Isn't that extraordinary? So I thought this is so interesting that I would like to talk to you about it, because, you know, it's hard to know, out of all the things that we are hearing in Gyan, which things are already known to people and which things are absolutely not known. So when we find something that's absolutely brand new and not known, it's very interesting. And it also adds up to an understanding of what's going on spiritually, physically, in the world, that only God knows, but that nobody else knows. So I thought that is really interesting. And it also helps us to verify and validate that it is God who is talking to us. So I will stop there, because we've reached that time, I think. But I wanted to share that. So thank you so much.
Do you have time? Are you still can continue?
Yes, I think that let's have a bit more time, but I would be interested to hear people's questions, because I'm talking and I don't know whether I'm making any sense to you or what.
Okay. Yes, yes. So let me ask a question, because you said right now the drama is actually the perception of the senses, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So the perception of the senses is actually my personal experience,
Mm,
and also it's actually I'm actually dealing with the outside of me, which is
mm.
other souls and the nature. And how do I come to terms with those in my drama? And or maybe can I forecast, like, if I am really uh, in a deeper level, can I actually come to understand everything about the future also? I'm like, or maybe how to deal with the outside of me.
There is an example in philosophy. I did study philosophy in university, and so they talk about this example. And the example is that if a tree falls down in a forest and nobody sees it or knows about it, did it really happen? And nobody can answer that question. But with these things that Baba is telling us, what he's saying is that the things that happen can be said to be historical realities if somebody observes them. And then you can say, I saw a tree falling down in the forest over there, and so that makes it a reality. But if something happens that nobody saw, then from this particular angle of whether or not something happens, we will say it probably didn't happen. Now, you might say, okay, there are craters on the moon. How did they get there? So the way that we figure it out is we research what's going on the moon. Why are there craters? And we can figure out an event that took place that could have created craters on the moon, and with various different forms of scientific research, you actually can say from your research angle, it happened X number of millions and millions of years ago. Maybe some explosion happened and the Big Bang happened and it created craters on the moon. And so according to your research, that's a probability, but there's no proof because nobody saw it. But what you do see is there are craters on the moon. So something must have made it happen, you see. And then anything that's outside of you, even though you didn't see it necessarily, but you see it when it's outside of you. You see all these other people, you have history, and there's all these records of things. And when you read about something or explore a place, it's like you're perceiving it and you're hearing about it, and what you're learning about it goes into your being, and you experience it as a reality that you have studied or heard about or learned about. So one kind of perception is direct perception, and the other is indirect perception, where you know about something because you learned about it, you studied about it, you saw pictures of it, because all of these things go into your soul, into your recording. And this is why we think that everything that's going on the outside of us is real, because there are all the signs that it's real. And then Baba comes along and says, okay, yeah, it is real, but the reality of it is registered in your soul. And then the question arises, why does he tell us this now? Because he didn't tell us before. Nobody else knows about it. Maybe some of the scientists who are working with quantum physics and things that are a bit out of my range. But they start saying, well, everything is energy. Okay, so everything is energy. Yes, everything is energy. But then how do you process that? How do you think about it? The scientific people have got it all figured out in their minds, but it's theoretical, And then in terms of practical reality, you have to deal with, you're in a social situation, you're in a country, you're in nature, you have to deal with it. You have to pay your taxes, you have to drive from A to B, you have to go to work, you have to eat, you have to sleep, all these things are necessary for your body. But from a philosophical point of view, or from a religious or spiritual point of view, we learn this information because we are coming to the end of the cycle and everything is going to collapse. And that is enough to make anybody crazy, you see. So when he says to us, look, when you experience these things collapsing and disappearing into nothing, it makes you nuts. You can't handle it. And so if you have this information, it makes it possible for you to get through the destruction without freaking out, without going nuts, without, you can maintain your sanity and still go through destruction. Otherwise not. It's too much.
This is Tangabai from Scarborough. My question is, you spend a lot of time with the Daddy Janki in England. One of the time, Daddy Janki, she met some scientists in England for the mind power checking. So do you know anything about that experience, please?
Yeah, I was there, and it was in America, actually, and in San Francisco. And these scientists wanted to check her brainwaves, and they hooked her up to, ECG machine and various things. And they hooked up me and Brother Ken and Sister Chandru, and I can't remember who else, but they wanted to see Daddy Janki, like she'd been doing Raj Yoga for many, many years, and others of us just a few years. Some people just started, some people, so they wanted to know if you meditate for a long, 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 long time, is your meditation better because of a long time, or what are the factors that make a person's meditation good? And they were finding alpha waves, delta waves, theta waves, gamma waves. They have these different Greek letters for them. And they said for Dadi Janki that she was in a permanent delta wave state, which corresponds to our description of being permanently free from the bondage of the body. Because she was able to retain her soul conscious condition from a brainwave point of view permanently, whether she was sleeping, awake, doing mathematical tasks or talking or whatever, but she was stable, steady in this delta wave state. And the rest of us would move from one state to another depending on the activities. So that was going on then.
Now, the very last thing you were mentioning about when, previous body and then you leave the body, which is the karmatheed stage, and then you take a new body. So during that time period, which is beyond time, so the span of the duration, we don't know, or the soul wouldn't even feel it. So at that time, there's no karmic account. But the question is, say a father gives birth to a child, now decides to die. So this mother is with the child. So what about the karmic account he has towards this, a human that he created?
Well, it would be very short,
Okay, very short. But isn't it his doing that the child is now born? Is he not responsible for that child's upbringing?
Well, if he leaves the body, he can't fulfill or be called upon to fulfill any responsibility. So it's like the drama cut it. And so his responsibility was simply to fertilize the egg, and that was it.
Yeah.
And so we can say, okay, you did that. Why did you do that? We can't really say. It happened.
Yeah. And now if I can ask a continuous question, when a BK leaves, we do, offer Bog, and sometimes we invite them. They do come back and give a message or so. So
Right.
what happens at that point? Is there a karmic account being created, or if you can expand a little bit on that?
Well, there's lots of things one could say about it. And you can't necessarily prove these things. I mean, here you're going into a Hindu practice of calling the soul after death, because definitely after death, the soul will leave and go into the subtle body. And the subtle body is, in a sense, like the physical body. And generally speaking, what we understand is that you leave your body, you take your subtle body, and you're around for 13 days or whatever. And then some PKs say, no, you go immediately to your next body. Some people say after 13 days, some after a different amount of time. So all of this is very vague. And there's no fixed rule about it, but there are statements, declarations about it. Then you see somebody comes into a new body, and they come in the new body with the subtle body of the previous body. And some children, they get born and they grow a few years and they remember their previous birth because they're still connected to the previous subtle body. And all of these are, we have to say, these are phenomena, and they do not fit with what I was just talking about, because Baba didn't mention anything about the subtle body. So what can I say? Because there's a contradiction here, and there are a lot of contradictions in Gyan, but in this particular one, this idea of when the soul is separate from, we can say, the physical body and the subtle body, then is in a timeless state, and it is possible that that happens. But because these things are so intangible, it's quite difficult to give a hard and fast factual response, because I think there's so many variations. And because Baba will consider something one side, something another side, and then you will get information about the subtle body on one day, and then you won't on another day. You'll get just the information about the soul with the physical body. So I think that's really not a question that can be answered in a hard and fast way.
Okay.
Hmm.
Why the reason why I had asked is because the Sri Lankan way, they have the 8th day or the 30th day. Only after becoming a BK did I get to know about these 13-day. So as you mentioned, yes, everybody says different kinds. How can it be proved? Maybe it cannot.
I think probably it cannot, because, you know, the thing is, the 13-day thing is part of the Hindu belief that is there in northern India. And, you know, and all the people around there are used to doing it that way. So there's a great deal of mix-up between bhakti and gyan also, you know. What to do? We have to do our best and say, okay, well, I'm going to think about it this way. Okay. And then Baba will suddenly say some different thing, and then you have to rethink, and that's okay.
So I have another question, because I, you know, whenever I meet you, you know, I like to talk to you, right? And also I feel like I get like inside information from you all the time. Especially secret of the knowledge. Knowledge is already kind of a secret, but it's a secret of the knowledge.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to ask, the question is, in your like, this is actually also the time is coming very delicate, right? In the world situations, everything become delicate.
Yes.
And we can already sense it, feel it. It's actually almost the time is coming close. So in your based on your effort by understanding worldly situations, and what input you can, or one information or anything you can give us in terms of we should know, and then we have to also make effort, and we have to be careful not to be distracted and careless.
Well, one thing that I think is a real reality is we need to be able to be free from negative thought, because whenever we have even a tiny bit of a negative thought, it can be captured by sort of ambient negative vibrations, and it pulls people down into depression and this sort of thing. So I think that for us to really be careful about maintaining pure thought and experiencing everything in a positive way and transforming it into a positive thing, translate it into something positive, be careful not to have any negative thoughts, feelings about anyone, is very necessary to keep yourself stable. And also, when you do that, you don't lose your spiritual power, because if you go negative, you lose power. And if you stay positive, you can actually build your power, and then you can feel that you're advancing. Otherwise, you feel you're not getting anywhere and that it's too difficult, and then you kind of give up. And Baba doesn't want us to give up. He wants us to keep going, because we have to be very strong, very stable, very steady as circumstances get more and more difficult. And also he wants us to be strong and steady so that we can be instruments to enable other people to be strong and steady as well, because it's difficult for people to get through what's going on. It's getting more and more crazy, more and more difficult, more and more unbearable, you know.
My question is, you said you talked to Dadi Janki and she explained your yoga is not there, so you cannot understand me. The language shouldn't be the barrier. And you worked
that was on that particular day.
Correct.
But it doesn't mean it's to be considered as a generalized thing.
No, what I mean is, how did you empower yourself? How did you work on that yoga to be at that state where now you can read her thoughts before she spoke?
I don't really know, because I think it was very much a question of saying, oh, stay connected and then this will happen. And it did.
Which
And
is
I was, my yoga, is not at all like anything in any meditation commentary or anybody's description of what yoga is supposed to be. It's just you're there and you're connected, switched on. When that is there, a lot of things happen which don't normally happen.
Okay.
And you may or may not make sense of that statement.
You wanted to know, what did you do? So
I didn't do anything. It just happened.
thank you.
You try to be subtle, you try to be connected and hope for the best, right?
But you learn Hindi so fast, I guess, right?
Well, some people say I got it from another birth, or
Okay.
there's so many unknown,
So there's a in a chat, someone said Ranjit asking how we feel bodiless stage. Baba always mentioned bodiless stage in Murali's. When soul in a body, it is not easy to feel bodiless stage. It's a statement, soul statement. So
Well, one of the definitions of bodiless is egoless. And I think that that's much more tangible than, okay, you're in a body without a body. How do you do that? Some people will say, what are you talking about? Some people, they will go into meditation in such a way that they will not feel their body anymore. I've experienced that many times. But the idea of egoless, because when somebody is reacting to something, that's ego. And if somebody is able to be completely, detached and not react, then that can be called bodiless, you see. So there's a big connection between egoless, bodiless, viceless. These last words of Baba.
Another question in chat, Denise. How do you know you're still making progress?
How do you know you're still making progress? Well, there are many times when you're making progress and you don't think you are, and many times when you think you're making progress, but you're not. So how do you know you're making progress? I think a lot of the time you don't know, but every so often you find that you're trying to do something and it's not working out, and all of a sudden it does work out, and then you feel, I'm making progress. Because the journey is very up and down, sometimes good, sometimes not good, sometimes, it's just really flat. And, the ways that we try to evaluate ourselves from a worldly point of view are so tangible, and yet with this it's so intangible that sometimes people try to force that it has to be tangible, but it isn't tangible. This is spiritual. This is very subtle. So I think a very important thing is you got to be patient. You got to understand it, excuse me, up and down, and keep going. Don't give up. And if you keep going, you will be making progress. Just put one foot in front of the other and keep going. You'll be all right. You'll get there. So yeah.
One more. We have lots of questions for you.
Okay. But I think I'm going to have to attend to this person who needs to get in touch with me from the other end of the world here.
Okay, very good.
Sorry about that.
That's
but
okay.
It's been really delightful speaking with all of you and spending time and hearing your voices. And yeah, it's been lovely.
Yes. So yeah, we will connect again, and then thank you very much
Thank you.
on behalf of entire Scarborough Center, and everybody enjoyed. Everybody get to see you. Everybody get to hear you. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Denishman,
you. And
Denishman, that's
Shanti.
not a question. What are you doing right now?
What am I? I'm talking to you.
Service. What kind of service you are doing right now? Where are you?
I'm in France. I have a place in south of France, which some people, when they come to, they say, "Oh, this is like Madhuban." So maybe I'm progressing. Oh, hmm.
So last question, someone asked, when are you coming to Canada? So we are planning something, right? So we still have that. Yes. Well, so
Very good. Yeah.
very good.
Okay. Take
Uh,
it.
someone wants
Denishman,
you
if
to
anybody
say
come to France, they can meet you.
Well, I'm in a very remote place somewhere near the Pyrenees Mountains, but you can get here, no problem.
Thanks.
so someone wants you to speak in Hindi.
No, I don't do much speaking in Hindi, especially not on the airwaves, because who knows what will happen. But I have been known to be recorded in Hindi, and it's on the YouTube somewhere. I'm not sure where.
Okay.
And Denishman, you are the first Samarpit soul from a foreign country. Is that right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, you have that proud.
That's my claim to fame. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your insights.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks. Lots of
you.
love and Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Same to
Thank you
you.
so much.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Lovely Denise.
Happy New Year.